My brother spread rumors because of which I was kicked out of the house in my teenage years. Now, years later, after seeing my success, my parents are demanding money. I am 28 years old, a girl, and I have a twin brother. Since childhood, my parents have treated us completely differently. For some reason, they were convinced that he was destined for great achievements, while I was considered an outcast simply because I preferred sports and socializing with friends over studying. The constant comparison with my brother affected my self-esteem and undermined my confidence. On our birthdays, my brother would throw luxurious parties with friends, while I was always seemingly forgotten. He often had friends stay overnight, while I could not even bring a friend home. I hated my childhood. The only person who cared about me was my grandmother. She would bring me my favorite candies, and sometimes gave me a little money, so I could treat myself. Over time, this parental love for my brother turned into emotional abuse towards me. My parents mocked my grades and hobbies. No matter how hard I tried, I could never meet their expectations of the perfect child. Although I was good at sports, they forbade me from participating in sports clubs, forcing me to focus solely on my studies, like my brother. This was unbearable, and as a child, I felt helpless. In my sophomore year of high school, I was punished again, this time for installing a chat app on my phone. I wasn't doing anything bad. Like all teenagers, I was just using the app to communicate with friends. But for my parents, this was a serious breach of trust. They made a scene, threw my things around, and removed the doors from their hinges, declaring that I would not have a right to a private life as long as I lived under their roof. Instead of supporting me, my brother only exacerbated the situation. Taking advantage of our parents' unfair treatment, he started lying about me, accusing me of things I didn't do to justify his own actions. He taunted me in front of my friends and spread rumors that I was allegedly abusing him at home because our parents loved him more. Even when he hurt himself to then show off bruises, everyone fell for his fabrications. On our 14th birthday, my brother's envy reached its peak when none of his friends came to his party. I don't know why his friends did that, but my friends went out for ice cream with me, and I had a great day, which infuriated my brother. In retaliation, he began spreading false rumors about me at school, portraying me as a spoiled girl. He lied that I allegedly beat him up more, and he inflicted injuries on himself to get bruises under his eyes or bruises on his shoulders. The next day, he proudly came to school, showing off his injuries as proof of my supposed aggression, and concocted various stories. When our parents asked him about the origin of the bruises, he lied that he got them while playing with friends. Talk of his bruises began to gain popularity, and people started to believe his twisted version of events. Rumors began to circulate at school, and even my friends began to look at me with suspicion. At first, I noticed barely perceptible changes. Those who used to talk to me started to distance themselves. Invitations to hangouts became fewer, as if someone had flipped a switch, and people began to avoid the spoiled girl accused of violence. One day, I gathered the courage and asked my former best friend why things had changed between us. She told me that my brother had been spreading various stories about me. She described the details of those false tales he had told everyone, accusing me of things I had never done. I was shocked by her words. It was a mix of shock and hurt, as if the ground had slipped from under my feet. The brother I had grown up with was spreading lies about me, accusing me of things I couldn't even think of. This betrayal deeply wounded me, leaving me with a stone in my heart and a lump in my stomach. The next day, I approached him at school to talk, but he simply ignored me. I begged him to stop lying about me, but he just smirked and said that I deserved to be alone. I was speechless because his lies and behavior started to scare me. I wanted to talk to my parents, but I was afraid they would believe him, not me. The isolation was especially painful because I had always been open to communication. It seemed that the lies driven by my brother's jealousy were destroying me, as if I were living in a parallel reality where my true essence was overshadowed by my own brother. These rumors went beyond simple teenage gossip. The opinion of everyone around me about me, these terrible rumors, quickly reached the principal, and my worst nightmare became reality. The principal called me and my brother to his office, along with our parents, to discuss all these stories. I sat there with my heart pounding like crazy, hoping my brother would finally tell the truth, but instead, he doubled down on his lies. He told the principal that the rumors were true and portrayed me as a hooligan who beat him up when our parents were not home. I couldn't believe it. I was overwhelmed with shock as my brother continued to weave his twisted tale of how I was allegedly angry at him because our parents loved him more. All of this was a lie, but he clung to his version like a tick. My mom cried, listening to my brother's story, hugging him as if he were a hero. My dad tried to calm my brother, saying that he was brave to tell the truth and that he would make sure nothing like this would happen again. Of course, I tried to defend myself, begging the principal to believe that all this was made up. It seemed that I was drowning in a sea of accusations, desperately trying to surface. But my brother insisted that I was a mean, aggressive person who exploded every day. The condemning glances seemed like I was fighting an impenetrable wall of faith in the fabricated stories. The principal sternly reprimanded me, saying that the school would not tolerate such behavior, and that was grounds for suspension. I begged him not to suspend me, but he just shook his head, saying he could not turn a blind eye. I stood there with tears in my eyes, trying to explain that I hadn't done anything wrong, but the principal firmly stated that I would be suspended for 10 days to make others understand that such behavior was unacceptable. I cried even harder, literally begging him to reconsider his decision. My parents, angry and humiliated by the situation, dragged me out of the principal's office. I didn't want to leave. I wanted to prove my innocence and make them understand. But they didn't care. We left the school, and I was in a depressed state, filled with humiliation and despair. When we got home, something unexpected happened. My father suddenly started packing my things. I was shocked, confused, and didn't understand what was happening. My mom asked him what he was doing, but he yelled that he could no longer allow me to live under the same roof as my brother. I was literally on my knees, begging my brother to tell the truth, but he remained cold and indifferent to my emotions. My father continued to pack my things and threw a suitcase into the hallway. I clung to my father's legs, still begging him not to kick me out, but he told me that someone like me didn't deserve to live in his house, and added that he would ask his mother, my grandmother, if she would take me. It seemed like the world around me had collapsed. I stood in shock, surrounded by my scattered things, removed from my own home. In the end, my grandmother arrived. She gathered all my things and helped me load them into the car. Seating me in the front seat, she made sure I buckled up, walked up to our house, rang the doorbell, and when my father opened, she started yelling at him for his treatment of me. With firm determination, she threatened that if he approached me again or tried to contact me, she would call the police or Child Protective Services, as what he had done with a child was actually a criminal offense. My mother tried to shift the blame onto me, but my grandmother wouldn't listen. She staunchly defended me, emphasizing that I was just a child who didn't deserve such harsh treatment. This was the first time in my life that I realized how strong a person my grandmother was. She was not afraid of my parents and, unlike them, believed me. In the end, we left, leaving behind my home, the only place I had ever lived. I cannot describe in words the unbearable pain I felt then. I remember how I cried on the bed and refused to eat, despite my grandmother's pleas. I told her what my brother had done, and she was also shocked. She convinced me that she believed my version of events, and I was happy that at least one person was on my side. When the 10-day suspension ended, The prospect of returning to school seemed like stepping into a den of predators. I entered the school corridors, and the expressions on my classmates' faces spoke for themselves. Condemnation, whispers, and sidelong glances, the false accusations continued to hang in the air. My brother brazenly ignored me, pretending I didn't exist. He made friends among those who believed in his fables, and saw him as a victim of my supposed attacks. No matter how hard I tried to convey my truth, no one wanted to listen. I became an outcast forever, branded with an unfair label that haunted me everywhere, in classes, in the cafeteria, in the corridors. The looks I encountered were full of contempt and distrust. I became a loner, keeping my head down. I attended all the classes, ate alone in the cafeteria, and went straight home after school. I had no friends, and it seemed that no one wanted me around. During all this time, my parents never once called to find out how I was doing. My grandmother constantly reminded me that it wasn't my fault, and that things would eventually get better. I graduated from high school with good grades and eagerly awaited college admission, hoping to start a new, better life. Only when I went to college did I first feel what freedom was like. For the first time, no one was monitoring my every step. No one was comparing my grades. No one was competing with me. I met many people and made friends among those who were close to me in spirit. Despite the emotional and physical scars I had received over the years from my family and peers, I focused on leaving all that behind and enjoying college life as much as possible. During this period, I discovered a talent for writing. I had always wanted to be a writer, but was not sure I could make a living from it, so I had given up on that dream. However, to make some money, I decided to try writing as a freelancer. I registered on several freelance exchanges, which helped me get orders from clients, allowing me to gradually build my portfolio throughout my college studies. I did this work and never asked my parents for money. After graduating from college, instead of getting a job in an office and working for a corporation, I realized that I could write full-time. Everything was going well for me thanks to numerous clients and long-term professional relationships with them, which allowed them to involve me in their new projects. Thanks to a successful freelance career, I not only became financially independent, but also could travel the world as a digital nomad. Traveling helped me heal the emotional wounds of the past, although it was not easy. I saved as much money as possible and decided to take a risk, believing in myself. Over the years, I saw many amazing places, although there was still so much left unexplored. The person I truly considered my family was my grandmother, and I adored her. She was sad when I left, but she understood that I needed to become independent. Despite my busy schedule, I always tried to find time for her. I would visit her on weekends. We often cooked together or just sat on the porch, talking about childhood or recent events. On weekends, I devoted myself to household chores or accompanied her to the local park for a leisurely walk. Recently, I completed one of the most important projects in my career. I can't name the brand, but I was incredibly lucky to write articles and product descriptions for them. After completing the project, I asked the team I worked with to leave positive reviews on my platforms, and they happily did so. I screenshotted some of the reviews and posted them on my Instagram, realizing that working with such a brand was a big event. As expected, many other copywriters congratulated me on my success and even reposted my stories to help spread the information. Thanks to this, I started receiving messages from strangers who needed help with their websites. My relatives also noticed this, and some of them reached out to congratulate me. Eventually, the director of my college contacted me. He saw that I was doing well and wanted to invite me to conduct a seminar for students on how to build a career as a copywriter. I was very nervous because public speaking is not my strong suit, but I decided to take a risk and agreed. When I stood in front of an audience of interested faces, sharing my experience, I felt that my life had come full circle and returned to its starting point. In my speech, I talked about the difficulties I had faced and how I had worked hard to support myself despite the tough days. It was a very satisfying experience to inspire others and contribute to the development of the community of authors. Some recordings of my speech began to spread in Facebook groups because people found them relatable. It was nice to finally receive recognition for my hard work. Last week, I was invited to appear on a local TV channel. It was a program about the profession of a copywriter, and I was invited to share my experience and insights with the audience. I was a bit nervous, but was glad for the opportunity. On the show, I talked about my journey, the importance of reviews and clients, and how a simple thank you post can open doors to incredible opportunities. I was very inspired by the chance to address a wider audience and inspire more people in this field. When the broadcast aired, I shared some highlights on my Instagram because I was proud that I had been invited to TV. That's how my relatives started to learn about my success in my career, because my parents had never told anyone about me, so they didn't know that I worked with well-known brands and appeared on television. Rumors quickly reached my relatives, and from them, I assume, to my parents, because just a few days later, while I was working on another project and my phone was on silent, I noticed 6 missed calls from my mom. Honestly, I was shocked to see her name on the screen, as many years had passed since she had called me. After all these years of silence, I couldn't understand why she suddenly decided to call. Reluctantly, I called her back, and she instantly answered. I asked if everything was all right, and Mom started congratulating me. Dad, probably sitting next to her, also joined the conversation. He started asking me about my life, health, and I answered their questions without giving it much importance. I didn't find it strange until they started asking how much I earned. I responded that it was none of their business, to which Dad said that we were family and I shouldn't be shy about telling them about my income. I said that my finances were fine. Hearing this, Mom started complaining about how hard their life had been lately. I frowned, suspecting something was wrong. Here's roughly how our conversation went further. Mom, we've been retired for a long time and want to renovate the house. Its condition is not the best, and we have no savings left. Me, okay, Mom, your success has given us hope. After we watched your interview on TV today, we thought maybe you could pay for the renovation. Dad, after all, we're family. You shouldn't waste time thinking about sharing your income with us. We really need your help. Me, are you joking? Why are you asking me for money when you haven't talked to me for years? I don't know what made you reach out. Thanks for the congratulations, but I'm not going to help you. After this, Mom started saying that I was selfish, that they needed care, and that was the least I could do for them. I was so angry that I wanted to tell them everything I thought, but suddenly I had an idea. Instead of just arguing with them, I needed to teach them a lesson once and for all. Since they decided they could use me after treating me badly all these years, I told my parents that I was ready to help them, but only on one condition. Dad asked curiously what the conditions were. Without hesitation, I stated my demand. If they wanted my help, they had to publicly admit in front of relatives and friends that my brother had made up all those lies that ruined my reputation. I wanted them to humiliate my brother just as they had humiliated me by believing his lies and manipulations. I wanted them to take responsibility for their actions and realize the pain they had caused me. Hearing my impossible condition, Dad began to doubt whether such an admission was necessary. Mom said it was completely unnecessary, and that we could discuss everything privately, not in front of other people. But I stood my ground. This condition was non-negotiable and mandatory for any help they wanted from me. As the tension escalated, Dad raised his voice, reminding me that he was my father and emphasized that it was my duty to help the family when needed. Mom, in a desperate attempt to persuade me, insisted that I should do the right thing and help, citing the years they spent raising me. I couldn't help but notice the irony in their sudden appeal. I reminded them of the past, that it was they who had kicked me out of the house, and it was my grandmother, not them, who raised me. Then they started to get angrier, but I firmly said that if they wanted to mend relationships and seek financial help from me, the truth had to be recognized publicly, and my brother had to be held accountable for his actions. After this conversation, my parents kept trying to reach me, but I ignored them. I'm starting to regret that I even called them back that day. And now I wonder, would I be a monster if I didn't offer any help to my parents? So what would you answer to the author of this story? Please write in the comments, and we'll move on to the update to find out how this story ended. Update 1. It's been a crazy week since I shared my story, and the support I've received from everyone has been overwhelming. It's nice to realize that everyone agrees that I shouldn't communicate with my parents or even consider helping them after what they did to me. The reason I even set such conditions was that I knew it was practically impossible for them. I know they love my little brother too much, and even if they realized he lied, they would never make him go through what they did to me. Today, after my parents tried to contact me again, and I didn't pick up the phone, my dear little brother sent me a disgusting message. Here's what he wrote. Hello, sister. Long time no see, and I can say that every day without you in my life has been great. I heard that Mom and Dad talked to you, and you set some insane demand. You do realize that they will never agree to it, right? They never loved you, and will never do anything to harm me. I admit that I lied to you 15 years ago, but it's been a long time. So stop being selfish and try to forget the past. You're not married and without children, so why don't you help them pay for the house repairs? Do the right thing and be a model daughter. This message was like a punch to the chest. His audacity to devalue my suffering and the conditions I had set showed his complete lack of empathy. His attempt to instill guilt in me because of my family status added another layer of insults. His assumption that I should put their needs above my own well-being was not only offensive, but also highlighted how little he valued me. Excited and determined to achieve justice, I realized that it was time to take matters into my own hands and reveal the truth that had been hidden for so long. I sat down to write a letter to my parents and close relatives, telling them about the painful details of my childhood and the unfair treatment I received in our family. In the letter, I described the strict and oppressive atmosphere in which I lived and how I was compared to my brother. I also detailed the malicious and completely false rumors that my brother spread about me in school, which in turn led to serious consequences and ruined my reputation. I wrote about how my parents kicked me out onto the street, and that if it weren't for my grandmother, I might not have been alive. In the end, I asked everyone to read the message my brother had sent me. I attached a screenshot where he admitted he had lied. This was a clear admission that I hoped would expose this long-standing lie. I sent the letter just an hour ago, and I'm sure that as soon as my parents and brother read it, real chaos will begin. Next time, I'll tell you how my family reacted to this letter. Update 2. A month has passed since my last update, and a lot has happened during this time. As expected, after receiving my letter, real chaos began in the family. My parents faced criticism from relatives, who had not known about the extent of the unequal treatment and emotional abuse. Many relatives contacted me and said that they had no idea what was happening. They apologized for not supporting me when needed. My brother and parents started bombarding me with messages that became increasingly offensive and threatening, so I contacted a lawyer. He sent cease and desist notifications, stating that if they continued to try to contact me, they would face serious legal consequences. It seems it scared them because after that, they stopped trying to reach out. My grandmother believes that I did the right thing by telling everyone the truth and supports me 100%. She is the only person who matters to me, and I'm glad she's on my side. Update 3. 2 months have passed, and I'm happy to report that everything is going well professionally. My copywriting business is thriving. I continue to receive invitations to seminars and podcasts, which strengthens my reputation in this field. My relationship with my grandmother remains very close. Recently, I took a short vacation to spend more time with her. She has taken up gardening and told me a lot about the flowers and herbs she grows. The moments I spent with her, whether sharing meals, having heartfelt conversations, or simply enjoying each other's company, have become some of my most cherished and valuable memories. My family has not contacted me again after receiving the letter from my lawyer, so I'm satisfied with how things are going. I've also started attending therapy and hope it will help me heal the emotional wounds. Thank you to the day that made me record this story and did it just for him. What do you all think about this? Be sure to write in the comments. Personally, my opinion is that it's very sad that none of the relatives really supported the author right away. Their last support, to be honest, seemed somewhat insincere, although I understand that it's hard to expect much from them. It's a pity that friends also turned away at such a difficult moment, because if friends are known in trouble, were they really friends? But unfortunately, life is not a set of beautiful proverbs, and anything can happen. With the parents, everything is clear, but I'm interested in one question. Is it only in the USA that they kick people out of the house like this, or does it happen here too? Write in the comments if you've heard of such cases here. Maybe something similar happened to your acquaintances. Personally, I've never heard of it, and I would be very interested to read about it. In general, watch our previous video, subscribe to the channel, because we will have many more similar stories, and good luck.